Well, hello, good evening, and welcome to Positively Positive. I am your host, Susan Mintz, and tonight, this is exceptional. My guest is returning from last year, but she has something new in her portfolio to tell you all about. Oh, it's going to be marvelous. But, before I do that, I get so excited doing this. I get to sit in my nightgown with a boa or glasses and all this jewelry. And I just get to have such a good time and interviewing incredible people. And we have the amazing show, Positively Positive. Everything is HIV related. Everyone, everything, every organization, every community resource all over the country. Stories, activism, love, community. It's the most exciting show on the air. And one day we are going to be syndicated and have sponsors, and we are going to be exclusively still the only show that talks about HIV and AIDS with an upbeat, a positive literal attitude, and knows what we're talking about, because I'm just the interviewer. The guests are doing their thing. So one day, mark my word, we are going to be national with sponsors, because HIV has not gone away. It is not going away. Thank God for great medicines. If you get tested, know your status, get on meds early, all of that's important. But a good drug company would be a great sponsor for Positively Positive. And without further ado, that's me. I'm going to tell you about a little bit about my guest. The other thing I don't like is I don't like talking about my guests up front. Because if you've ever gone to any of these events where people introduce a speaker, they go on and they tell you all this stuff. And then about their kids and where they went. And next thing you know, you're exhausted. It's like watching paint dry. Just get to the point. My guest tonight is, I'll put enough makeup on, is Dr. Sandra Anderson Spencer, a dear friend for so long. And she is going to talk about her HIV status, being positive for 30 years, her story that she's proud to tell, her degrees. She has everything. And I also wanted to talk about a program that she designed called ROAR, ROAR. So when the glasses came off, it is time to say, Dr. Sandra Anderson Spencer, you come on in.
Hi, hello. Thank you for having me.
I need new boas. After every show, they shed all over the floor. And that's because they're old and they're dried out like me. How are you, my friend?
I am doing well. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, it's wonderful having you again. We have new viewers, from last year. The show's done so well, but I know we have new people, which is why it's important not to just have new guests, but to have returning ones who have positive stories and really have done something with their lives. So
Absolutely.
I'm just so happy to have you back on again. I want you to tell Sandra, we go back through decades when we share a lot of friends,
We
but
do.
tell me about your story. This, back our audience up and give me, take some time and tell me about your story and where
Mhm.
you are with your life as a pastor, a wellness person, at your academia, everything you've done in your life. It's amazing. I mean, that's what's so amazing about you, is you make it all look so easy with your health and wellness. And congrats on great labs. I saw that wonderful picture.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Yes.
for having me again, Susan and Richardo. I so enjoy collaborating with Campbell Health Solutions, and I'm so proud of the work that you are doing. And so, yes, I am Dr. Sandra Anderson. I work with the Florida Department of Health as the HIV community liaison. I also, on the weekends, run my private practice. where I am a therapeutic mentor. And I absolutely love the work that I do because I'm helping people journey through their lives, um, living through the same experiences that I once journeyed through. So it's a pleasure. It's a calling.
It is a calling. That's what's so wonderful about you is you were called not only because of your personal life and your, but I also want to know, tell our audience how you've been positive for 30 years, but I want you to tell our listeners how that happened, and also where you were born and where you went to school and how did you become HIV positive and then take me to today.
Okay, so I was born in Tampa, Florida. That's where my parents raised us, and we moved to Fort Lauderdale. Um, went through a lot of trauma, which I call transgenerational trauma, and that's exactly what my dissertation is in, transgenerational trauma, because this is trauma that's transmitted from family and through family systems. And so it's been such a journey coming from a place of such brokenness,
Mm-hmm.
of dealing with unresolved grief and trauma, to a place now where it's miracles every day. And it feels like a miracle every day in my life. Because, Susan, I didn't think I was going to see 20. And now at 57, it feels amazing. I'm so grateful for what God has done in my life and what He continues to do in my life. And so becoming HIV positive for me looked like an addiction. And so I was addicted to drugs and alcohol since I was 16 years old. And
Wow.
so now I have 38 years clean and sober. And coming from that addiction and fighting for my sobriety, it was such a harrowing ordeal. I think that's the best way I can explain it because addiction is treacherous. It's like living in a prison without bars.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be free from the stronghold of addiction, for the listeners who have may have come from the same experiences, you have to live it to understand it. And I'm just so grateful, Susan, that I'm completely free from those strongholds of my addiction. And
Yeah. And it is a battle every day, and you certainly have done it well. How did you get, and every once in a while, you're always keep talking because sometimes we may lose the picture, but the audio is always recording. So
okay,
if for some reason you see yourself disappear, just, you know, it'll either circle around again or you'll click back on, but the audio is always working. But anyway,
yes, ma'am.
the other thing is then how did you become, I mean, drugs and alcohol and all that, but how did you become HIV positive specifically? You know that.
So I've been HIV positive for over 30 years, so well over 30 years. When I was diagnosed with AIDS, it was back in the early 90s. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to have contracted it in the 80s, and that was during my years of addiction, my years of promiscuity, my years of self-abuse, my years of re-victimization. And so for many years, even after I tried to maintain my sobriety, and my drug of choice was, by the way, was crack cocaine and alcohol, anything 80 proof. And I remember getting sicker and not knowing what was wrong with me because by this time I was clean and sober. I was attending my church and gardening at my church. And I remember just getting these lesions all over my body, which I later found out it was Kaposi sarcoma, a
Mm-hmm.
form of skin cancer. And then my clothes began to fall off me. The weight began to fall away. I had an ulcer under my left breastbone that you could see straight through my skin. And I went to the hospital and they tested me and they admitted me, but they never tested me specifically for HIV. And that's where I think, especially back in those times that we failed the community, we stigmatized HIV to be a gay man's disease,
Right.
The four H's. And I think, um, and I hope we've learned a lesson from that time, because it did such damage to the psyche, and even the way we still see HIV today. It's been typecast
Right.
as all those things, and that further stigmatizes. Um,
Yeah. That's when Jeff was, being bisexual. Jeffrey, my late husband, it was in the 80s that he contracted it from a partner. And he at first didn't fit the profile other than we knew it had to be because his partners, when they were all passing. But with the African American community, it was still stigmatized as a gay man's disease. And then I'm yelling, I know it's going to go to the marginalized. I didn't use that word then. I said it's going to go into the Black community. It's going to go into the heterosexual community. It's a virus, plain and simple. But they didn't really know all that much, and you didn't fit the profile necessarily. Why would they test you? And they still won't unless you ask for it, which I find mind-boggling why it's not automatically done with every physical. But they're not doing that, are they?
and that's unfortunate, because we need to test. We need to make it a part of the CBC, the complete blood check. Um,
Yes.
if we're checking that lipid panel, that cholesterol panel, and
Yes.
those other tests that we do, it should be a part of the testing.
That's right. They check for iron, they check your glucose, they check everything. Why don't you check for a virus that, in a few years might kill me, or if it tests me and I come back positive, I could get on some meds and maybe I could stay well for 30 years.
Absolutely.
Our healthcare system is so screwed up. It's just a nightmare. But tell me then, so you've been HIV, your story's all over the place. You've written your book. What's the name of your book?
My book is called Lessons from the Thorns. His Grace is Sufficient.
Oh, say it again.
Lessons from the Thorns. His Grace is Sufficient. It's an autobiography about my life, and it includes my diagnosis.
Right. And you came out with that when? When was that come out? 10 years ago, was it? Or
That was published in 2016.
same time mine was.
Yes.
We're overnight successes. Look at us here. The other thing I want to know about is you have a degree. Are you you're a health and wellness counselor. You have a business on the side you're a health and wellness counselor. You
Yes,
have your own practice.
I have a private practice that I run on the weekends, and it is a therapeutic mentoring modality that I've created. And it's called Restart to Restore. And I work with Homeland Security, I work with FBI, I work with other community partners to end human trafficking, because that's something that I came out of. And I created this modality called the Second Rescue, because when we're taking people out of human trafficking, it's not enough. It's not enough to say, we've rescued these people of human trafficking and placed them in a safe home. They're not safe yet, because home is not safe. Home is
No.
this body. This is my body. And it's not safe until I do the processing mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and physiologically, so I can come home. And what I mean by, Susan, our home is not necessarily our address where we live. That
Right.
changes from time to time. Our home is this body that we live in.
Our
Our
temple.
home is this temple. And I left this home. That's why I was on drugs. That's why I was promiscuous. That's why I allowed myself to go through domestic violence, because I left my home when I went through trafficking and when I went through sexual assault, and home wasn't safe anymore. And another word for leaving home is called dissociation. So
Right.
that's a mental health term, where it's a defense. It happens in a blink of an eye when I feel like I can't cope with the reality that I'm dealing with, then I will create my own and dissociate. And I did that for many years.
Oh yeah, and we all do it at times in our life. I think that's really important point to say that I think we all can remove ourselves from ourselves at some points in our life.
It's a defense mechanism that happens automatically, and it's there to help you save yourself. Unfortunately, like I was saying, Susan, when we're taking people out of trafficking, we got to get trafficking taken out of them. And you have to go through that process of healing and recovery. And that looks like a therapeutic modality that's culturally competent, very humble, and very responsive to the degree of complex post traumatic stress and to those symptoms of PTSD. And so that's what I do. And I love it because it
So
works.
you say that what would the grade be in this country when it comes to human trafficking and mental health and being a mental health, a doctor, you have your doctorate in mental health. How are we doing as a country here?
What a wonderful question, Susan. Our country is a capitalist society. And as long as it maintains that capitalism and that disposition of capitalist, then we're doing more harm than good because there's always an agenda to what we're doing. And that's what we got to move behind. There's an agenda to the sick management that's in our country today. And I think that's exactly what it is. It's more sick management. Think about
Right.
countries that's not even as advanced as we are in America with our technological advancements, with our medical advancements. You have other countries that has less and that are
Right.
less sick, that are not on multiple medications, including psychotropic medications, behavioral health medications. Until we remove the dollar sign to healthcare,
There you
then
go.
we're going to continue to see what we're seeing around our nation today.
The dollar, there's always something attached to the dollar. Every issue is money. Everything today is dollars and cents, and it doesn't work. Every once in a while, if you notice, you are getting, dropped, but you're not. Your audio is working just perfectly. But whether it's a connection that you're having a problem with or your device, but you still just keep talking. This has been marvelous. And people need to hear about mental health from a mental health doctor, a counselor, a woman, someone who's been through the fires of hell and has come out on top. And what about your minister? Are you a licensed ordained minister too?
I'm not a pastor and I'm not a minister. I've never, I never held those titles, nor do I have any desire to hold them. Some people have called me a minister, never a pastor, and I think that's because I integrate a Christian worldview in my approach, and so that's probably
Yeah, because that's what I always thought is because you are a therapist and you are a Christian and you have such a way of speaking that to me, I put that together and it comes out. I'd rather have you ministering to me than a lot of the other people I see on TV. You
thank you
have
so
a way of doing it that is not boorish and offensive and arrogant and blustered, and you just speak from your heart with the love of God, and you just happen to be an amazing woman who's done an awful lot with it. Now tell me something else. I want to know about ROAR, ROAR, which Rob told me, Rob Scott, our dear friend, our mutual friend, he told me about it previously, but as you said, you designed this 5 years ago.
I did, and just let me say thank you to you for those kind words, Susan. And I believe that you're just as wonderful, and I thank you for the work that you've been doing in positively positive. It's just phenomenal the work that you're doing. So thank you. And
It's
yes,
me. You know why it works? This is me. Whether I was doing the old cookbook or whether I was being flamboyant on another show or a talk, I love it. I get to be in my house. I get to dressing up. I get to be this character who can be outrageous. And for me, it works because I'm not I'm just the interviewer. My guests are the show, but it's perfect for me because I get to be a character.
yes.
So tell me, lady who roars, about this program you designed. And by the way, Miss Sandra, Dr. Sandra, you live in West Palm Beach, correct?
I live in no, I live in Martin County in Stuart, Florida.
All right. But they were going to also want, if people want to contact you or get your book, make sure you tell us your email address or how people can contact you. Just make sure we do that, or a phone number, and then we'll put it on the bottom of the screen so people can contact you and they can get your book and all that other stuff. So just
Absolutely.
how can people
And
contact you? Let me have that now while I'm remembering.
so they can contact me on my website, which is my name.com. So that's Sandra Maria Anderson.com. And that'll bring up all of my information. You'll get to see a lot about what I do. You'll hear a lot of reviews. What you may not see on that website is the new movie that came out a couple of years ago. That's now on Amazon Prime. And I am in that movie speaking as both a therapist and a survivor of human trafficking. And so it's called Taking Innocence Project
Oh,
docuseries,
yes.
and it's on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. That's wonderful. A Taking Innocence program.
Yes, and it's made it to Amazon Prime. So
Wow.
we're very, very excited about getting the message out and letting people know that there is help and that they're not alone in this very heavy topic.
Now, talking about money, are they giving you some royalties?
No, all the royalties go. I signed over all my royalties to
Oh,
help victims of human trafficking and to help our law enforcement to better take care of those people. So no, I signed over all my royalties. I get no royalties.
of course you would. You wouldn't have, and if you took any money, you'd also probably give it back to everybody. Now, so it's Sandra Maria Anderson.com.
.com. Yes. And
And
so
that'll have all the information about your book and everything
yeah,
else.
everything is there. Yes.
Now, tell me
And
about ROAR, ROAR, and how you designed it and what this is about.
so the idea or the concept of ROAR came from the need for support groups. We used to have support groups. And I remember when I was becoming clean and sober, we had the AA, right? The Alcoholics Anonymous. We had the
Oh,
NA, the Narcotics Anonymous. But we didn't have a support group that really helps us deal with a broader array of the different issues that we go through living through life. And it's not just HIV. We're living with domestic violence. We're living with feeling like we're not good enough. We're living with rejection from our childhood, with being molested, incested. Maybe it was verbal abuse, right? Or physical abuse,
mhm.
especially under the age of 9. We're dealing with a lot of these things. And when we're dealing with them, they begin to be those subconscious drivers that drives patterns of behavior that we will never connect the dots with without help. And
Right.
so ROAR, Raising Ongoing Adherence and Resilience, is a psychoeducational initiative. It is free. The first 4 years, it was 8 weeks. Now I've expanded that to 12 weeks. So those who graduate from this program will have a beautiful formal graduation. You will receive a certificate of completion, gift cards, and a t shirt. But more than that, you receive the 5 components of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is a wonderful framework used by Fortune 500 companies all over the world because it works. Because without emotional intelligence, it doesn't matter the hard skills you have, right? Doesn't matter your IQ. How are you with your emotions and managing your emotions, self regulating and being able to pull back, expanding your window of tolerance, and being able to get along with your peers and your constituents? How are you with that? And so we take
So
this
you
a
wrote
whole
you
nother level in Roar.
you wrote this from scratch, though, right? This was in you, and I want you to tell me what it stands for again slowly. But you wrote this from scratch. This program.
Yes, I developed it from scratch. And it's called ROAR, Raising Ongoing Adherence and Resilience. The O means we keep going every year and we keep going. We don't stop because we need time to change. A lot of these behaviors have been with us over our lifetime.
Right.
And without disrupting those patterns that happen in the limbic system, where we get on this limbic loop, and where our amygdala, that part of the brain, that little part of the brain that gets hijacked
Right.
by our inability to self-regulate. So we stay in hypervigilance, or we stay in hypovigilance, and we don't know these terms. We won't know that without coming to get help. And that's what we do in ROAR. I break it down and I explain it, and then I integrate it with the five components of emotional intelligence. And let me explain very quickly
Yeah,
what
this is great.
Number one is self awareness. Nothing happens, nothing changes without you understanding you. That is self awareness. Number two is self regulation. So, say now that I'm aware I may get angry. And why do I get angry? Well, maybe it's because something happened in my childhood that I never resolved. Maybe it was some type of trauma or grief that I need to resolve. Now that I understand that, I can work on my window of tolerance. This happens at a neurological level, my nervous system. I'm able to expand my window of tolerance with awareness. Then
Hmm.
I get to motivation. That's the third component of emotional intelligence. And that is, I need to be motivated beyond reward. That means I'm motivated based on my value as a human being, not what I can get or even give, but I am worthy of life, love, happiness,
Yeah.
freedom. We are worthy of that because of our very existence as human beings. And then number three is empathy. I don't just teach empathy, I teach what's called accurate empathy. Because in our day and times where narcissism is running loose, and not just narcissism, but other cluster B personality disorders, we have to understand accurate empathy. And then finally, social skills. Social skills teach us, how are we going to get along with other people? How do we get along with them? And then being able to tune in to those subtle cues, facial cues, and understanding how that looks. Because we have a lot of people that's very antisocial, and that's okay. That's okay. But we are made for community. We're born and
Right.
wired for community. So we teach all that and more in ROAR.
All that and more in Roar. That's what's so interesting is what's running amok in this country is ego and arrogance and lack of self. I think so many of the people who are running this country, they have low self-esteem or they wouldn't need the cameras on them all the time. They wouldn't need to be bragging all the time. They have low self-esteem. And now you've got AI that they can do whatever they want with. I mean, we are so antisocial and we should be creatures that loves to commune. And we are so anti-commune right now. It's like I can't even watch the news without wanting to. I'm glad I sold my gun. I swear I would shoot my TV sometimes. I can't watch it because it's so upside down. It makes no. I'm glad I didn't grow up with this stuff because I'd be manic for sure. I mean, I'm a little crazy at times, but I grew up in the 50s and 60s. I mean, we had psychedelic mushrooms and we had acid and we had pot and we were promiscuous, but this is a whole nother level of a crazy that you have to deal with and we both have to live in. And we're just not wired for that.
Absolutely, we're not. We're
the
wired
lack,
for
the
love.
lack
We're
of
wired for
self is
community.
running amok. I just
Yes.
think that so many power players, they have low self-esteem.
Yes, and they hide that under this imposter syndrome. And then they have these displays of grandiosity. And you'll be shocked to know that a lot of the leaders in many countries are literally dealing with that because of the grandiosity and that charming. People want a strong leader, right? Even from the days of Samuel, when they said, "Give us a king, we want a king." And Samuel warned the people, you know what? God needs to be the one that leads us, because men are going to put your sons to war. He's going to maintain his self-interest over the best intention for his people. And Samuel tried to warn them, and they said, no, We don't care. We want a king. People need someone to look up to, but unfortunately, a lot of these charming personalities also come with a very dark side, a very
Oh,
grandiose and entitled side that you won't see until oftentimes until it's too late.
oh, they are. I mean, and it's so real. You can almost see this dark cloud around them because you focus on empowerment of self-worth,
Yes,
self-esteem, not being greater than, but caring about others as well as yourself. And when you have people literally running our country, our government, and trying to run this world with nothing but ego and overlooking the people who need the most help, your infrastructure. I love to say about infrastructure. I'd like to get a builder on or something. Infrastructure to me is not bridges and roads. And that's not what I think about. Infrastructure to me is you and me and 320 other million people in this country.
yes,
Infrastructure to me is people. And we have seriously hurt
yes,
our infrastructure.
yes.
Would you agree with that, Dr. Sandra?
I would agree, and mainly that's because of this very egocentric dynamic that is it's society. It's so broad. It's taken over society, and that's because of what's coming in our ear. Remember, Scripture says faith comes by hearing,
Mm-hmm.
and so we're listening to the music that has been so devoid of love and intimacy, and it's more overly sexualized. There's
Yeah.
some violence on the undertones of the music, and you have to realize something that will literally hijack us neurologically. It's called the amygdala hijack, and when
Mm-hmm.
that amygdala is hijacked, you're not in control anymore. It's
Mm-mm.
literally controlling you, and so I explain this from a neurological perspective that we must understand the historical overview of this. We must understand the contemporary implications that we're dealing with. There's nothing new under the sun, according to King Solomon. He wrote that in Ecclesiastes, and there isn't anything new under the sun. And we've
Kidding.
seen this before where we just run amok when we don't understand that we are sacred and that we have to be careful what we're listening to. We have to be careful the words that we allow to come out of our mouth because guess what? You have a thalamus and your thalamus only responds to your voice. So when you look at someone driving and you're yelling and cursing at them, they don't hear you, but your thalamus will respond to you and you will have to eat the fruit of those words, so to speak. And we don't understand
Yeah.
that, but that's in scripture. That's why the
Of
Lord
course,
says, bless those who curse you. Bless them. Don't curse people. Bless them
uh,
because you're blessing yourself, because you hear yourself. Your thalamus responds to your voice.
I truly believe that we are living in biblical times. And for those people that don't necessarily believe, that's okay. But for people who do, I think the Bible is walking right now. And God is talking louder than ever, but most people are just not hearing what's going on. But it's really true. Sometimes when you're talking to somebody and they don't answer, and the next thing you know, everybody's got these earbuds, in their ears. So they're listening to everything. And it doesn't matter. And I laugh because so many times I said to somebody something, and I wonder why they aren't listening or they didn't answer. They can't hear me. They got this stuff in their ears. It's just crazy.
It is. It
Technology
is.
is just,
And
I always laugh. I said, I
tech-
got this laptop because of you. When you watch the interviews from last year, a couple of them, I'm laughing. You watched the interview from last year. You said, you're not centered right, or however you worded it, mistactful. One thing I'm not, you're a mistactful psychologist. Anyway, so you said I wasn't centered right, or I didn't look right, or something was wrong. I said, uh-oh, I went out and bought a laptop because of you. You're the reason I'm sitting here, the show and you. So you're responsible. But it's just is it's wonderful hearing from you. You know, my late husband was a psychologist, is emotionally disturbed. He always said I was his thesis because we were just, you know, he just loved the way I was with my personality, the way I was. But you know, you speak in a different firm because you know he wasn't brought up as in the Christian. We were, you know, Jewish, but in general, you speak in the same. Your words are different, but your meanings are the same. You're good at what you do. You're doing it in a different way than he did it, but that was his background, his psychology with emotionally disturbed, alcoholism, um, delinquent youth. So he was just way ahead of his time, that's for sure. But I reap the
Amen.
benefits of a wonderful man. But there really needs to be programs dedicated, not just on public broadcasting, but programs that can highlight someone like yourself who can talk to people in a real sense from an honest heart and nothing to be gained other than to care about people the way you do.
That's it. And
So
it will start with the family. Everything starts with the family, Susan. The parenting is one of the most essential functions of our family systems. And that's what my dissertation was on, by the way. My dissertation was a phenomenological study on transgenerational trauma and the African American community. And I tell you what, the complex trauma that still perpetuates itself in the Black community lends itself to everything we see, right? All the social determinants of health, even with HIV, is disproportionately impacting minority populations. And so,
yeah,
understanding that, we have to ask ourselves why. Why is it every social determinant of health, from the lack of housing, right, to children in DCF custody or CPS, we have to ask ourselves why, and this has historical implications as well as contemporary implications as well. And so I'm just so proud of you. I'm so proud that you are doing what you're doing with these podcasts, so we can understand from a deeper um, a deeper framework that it is parenting. Parenting is everything. So you mentioned technology. Listen, parenting mitigates that. Parenting will curtail that. They will say, you know what, that phone goes away at this time and it goes in this place. And
sure.
children don't get so addicted and so hooked on it, because social media is very addicting. We don't understand this. It's as addictive as any other.
It's a
Um,
drug. It
it,
is.
it truly is. I've
I mean,
seen videos where they've taken phones from little babies and the baby
huh,
fell out screaming, turning colors. And you know what? This is how you can tell, Susan. They gave the phone back and immediately the tears
they,
stopped.
yeah,
Immediately, like a robot turning on and
right.
off. And that's exactly what's happening.
I mean, you know, I never had any kids, and I never wanted any. I had a couple of. I'm a godmother to a bunch, but I never wanted my own. I just didn't have the patience nor the men. Just was. We weren't ready to cope with kids. But when I'm in church and I'm walking around, I have to laugh because little 2 and 3 year olds already with the thumbs googling and playing games and doing. I'm thinking to myself, do you realize that you might as well be giving your kids some drug?
Yeah,
I look at it as an addiction.
it is addiction. It is.
And you
That's
don't
why.
need to be, and a mother doesn't have to be, or a father. You don't have to be a friend. You have to be a parent.
Yeah, but we parents can't give what they don't possess. If they don't possess the parenting skills
Right.
needed um, to understand the dynamic and what that looks like. I mean, I was a young mother, I didn't. And so understanding that we need to start programs, even like Roar, and make them incentivized, throughout schools, because the earlier we can learn these, the earlier we can understand emotional intelligence, the earlier we can begin to halt the transmission of trauma to the next generation.
Yeah, and it is generational. That's what, if your grandmother didn't, your mother didn't, and you don't, you're passing the same thing on to your child.
Yes.
There's got to be a break.
Subconsciously, right?
There's got to be a break somewhere.
Hmm.
Okay, is Roar is on your website, right?
No, Roar is not a part of my website. My website is my private practice. Roar is a part of the Florida Department of Health, where I work with the community. And again, I work as the HIV community liaison. And so they can just reach out to me at sandra.anderson@flhealth.gov if they want more information about Roar. And they can join. They can join today. They can join now. And it is a wonderful program. We do it face to face on Mondays with the seniors. Tuesdays, we do Roar. I facilitate in the evenings at 6 p.m. And then Wednesdays, we're at Vita Nova on Australian, where we're
That's
working with the homeless youth. And then Thursdays, we will soon be at the Gun Club jail. And we will continue also at South Intensive School.
all right. Now, what was that one, Sandra? Give me that one with the Florida Department of Health that we know.
Yes, it's Sandra.Anderson@flhealth.gov.
Okay, and that's where they can find out about the Roar project
Definitely.
and
Yes,
sign
and they
up.
can join.
Is there a
They can
charge for
join.
it?
Roar is free. It's absolutely free. But when you finish Roar, you will get a certificate of completion, which looks great on your resume, by the way, because most employers want to know, are you emotionally intelligent? And so you will get gift cards to complete it. You'll get a Roar t-shirt, but you will also get graduation, a formal graduation with about four of your family members can join you for that. And it's all free. It's all free.
That's wonderful. And then how long is the course, or how long does it take to get it to go through it and graduate?
12 weeks.
12. So I'm a senior, so it'd be a Monday night. I would go for 12 weeks. You do it on a Zoom. And is that right? There's not a,
Zoom is on Tuesday nights, and any age can go on the Zoom
oh,
on
so
Tuesday.
that one's a free for all. Anybody can go on Tuesday nights.
Anybody can go on Tuesday. Mondays we're in Belglade with the seniors at a senior center there in
Mm.
Belglade. So if you're in the Belglade area, you're definitely welcome
Yeah,
to come.
I want to say tonight, right now, I just want to make sure I say thank you, Dr. Sandra Maria Anderson Spencer, the whole 9 yards. There's not enough names to give you. My friend, Dr. Sandy, all your information has been put up, and I'll let you know beforehand when your segment will air, and then you can send
Thank
that out
you.
to your friends. And then
Thank you so much.
I want to thank all the people who've listened and who supported and who care about this type of programming. Please continue to share your stories. And also when it comes to HIV, as we've discussed tonight, get tested, know your status, get on your medications early, get with a good doctor, go to Campbell Health Solutions with Richardo Jackson, campbellhealth.org, or contact me and we will connect you to the proper resources that you need, because you are worth it and you should live productive and happy and healthy and well lives, but you have to have the resources. So Dr. Sandy, thank you. And thank you, my
Thank you so
listeners.
much, Susan. I appreciate you. And I want to thank my doctor, Alberto Mestri, who helped me come from a CD4 of 2 to a very healthy CD4 and a undetectable viral load. Thank you, Dr. Alberto Mestri. And I want to thank my therapist, Dr. Paul Heckstrom, who helped me come from a low place of depression and anxiety and trauma to help me be this healed person I am. So Dr. Paul Heckstrom, Dr. Alberto Mestri, and today my doctor is Dr. OCME. And I'm so grateful for wonderful doctors in my life and
Yeah,
wonderful people like you, Susan. Thank you.
I'll be seeing you very soon.
Thank you.
It was great.